Thank you for joining me for Warm Up Wednesday or Workout Wednesday. Today I want to talk about indoor cycling and what a great warm up or introduction you need to provide to your participants. So I'm showing you right now me on the bike pedaling away. This is actually my biggest pet peeve when I walk into a studio and someone's introducing the class when they're already on the bike. So I highly encourage you to get off the bike and make yourself available to the participants and walk around the studio. You don't need to be on the bike when people are walking in the studio. You need to be available to them to help them get set up on the equipment safely and so that they feel successful and comfortable throughout class. So I would love to see instructors, when they're teaching a cycling class, for the first few minutes of the beginning of class to be on the floor helping people get set up. Once class officially does begin, so before the class begins, for sure they need to be off the bike helping people get set up. Their bike should be ready to go, music playing, atmosphere set. And then once the class does officially start, come to the front of the room again. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to get on the bike, but start talking about the introduction to the class. So talking about who you are, what class is it, what kind of cycling class is it, because there's so many different cycling formats out there now. Is it a 45-minute class? Is it a 50-minute class? Is it a 60-minute class? Is it a 2-hour class? Give them an idea of what to expect, how long they'll be on the bike, what other things, activities you'll be doing on the bike, and if they're ever going to have to get off the bike at any point, tell them how to do that safely. Explain to them the different pieces of the bike they need to know. So the biggest part of the introduction in the very beginning is telling them, welcoming them to the class, explaining the experience, and then it's time to start talking about the equipment. So what I start to do is actually, I tell them what their warm-up should feel like. So I start to introduce them to the resistance knob, and I tell them to I ask some of the new participants especially to reach down between their legs, turn down that resistance all the way, and then turn it up enough just so they can start to feel what we call a push point or resistance happening on those legs. So then they know that this is their warm-up. How they should feel is they feel a little bit of resistance. The pedals are never out of control, and we want to explain to them that that should never happen throughout the class. They should never feel like their pedals are out of control. Then you want to take them into understanding their levels of intensity. So right now we're just warming up for the class. We're giving them an idea of what to expect as far as levels and what we'll explain throughout the class. So I like to use a scale of 1 to 10. It's an easy scale for people to know how they should feel. I tell them a scale 1 is you sleeping at home on the couch. A level 10 is an all-out intense sprint that you can't hold for more than 15 to 20 seconds. So I explain to them where they might see those in the class. Maybe they see it 3 times, maybe they see a level 9 2 times throughout the class, and I tell them kind of when that's going to happen so they know when to expect it and what to do. So your introduction just needs to be a slight overview of the class. Is it going to be mostly high-intensity interval training? Do you have a lot of hills planned for that day? What can you give them to help them understand what they're going to be doing and expect of what they're supposed to be doing? Then after I give them zones, kind of a class overview, levels of intensity, another level of intensity I want to talk about in this video is zones. So there are zones I've heard instructors use, and I love those too. A zone 1 to 4, and feeling on the bike, a level 1 or a zone 1 is kind of your warm-up or your introduction, your easy zone. Then zone 2 is a medium to harder zone. Zone 3 is medium to hard, and then, so actually zone 2 is more of an easy medium zone. Zone 3 is medium hard, and then zone 4 is that hard zone or hard work. So explaining that to them and having them identify that maybe through breath. I like to avoid sweat, or you're measuring sweat, because some people sweat more than others do. So encouraging people to gauge how they feel and how they're breathing. So if they're really working hard, or I want them to really work hard in a drill, I'll say something like, you should not be able to close your mouth and breathe easily through your nose right now. That's where your intensity level should be. So I bring that up in the class, but in the introduction to that warm-up, you need to be giving them an idea of what to expect and how you're going to gauge their success or their efficiency in their workout. Then you talk about the technology. So there's so much to talk about in the warm-up in cycling. A lot of the time, all I'm doing is setting them up with that introduction of where the resistance is, setting that push point, and letting them pedal between 65 and 75 RPMs while that first song is playing. That first song also needs to have as few vocals as possible so that they can hear you explain all of these different pieces of the bike, the format, the class, what to expect. So as far as the bike and the technology, some bikes have no technology. They're just a straight up bike. And sometimes those can be the best bikes because then as an instructor, you're the sole motivator of the class, and you have to help keep them safe and give them a great workout without that extra tool of the pilot in front of them. We do have the extra pilot in our classes here at Pro Sports Club, and I do love them because they give people an idea of to gauge their past success in class or whatever their calorie burn or wattage was before, and they can see improvement as they go. But what I don't love about so much technology is that it can be really distracting and it can take you away from that mind-body connection we're trying to create. So I like to encourage people, if you do have technology in your class, to encourage your participants to not focus on whatever it is, to try not to get in that bad form that we talk about in our cycling classes where they're so focused on what's happening on the pilot or the computer that they have no idea what their posture looks like, or they have no idea how they're feeling or what they're doing in that class, during that time. So in our pilot, we have watts, we have RPMs, which is speed or its cadence. Our pilots also show stages, they show gears, they show the overall summary of what you have, your max wattage that you've hit. So much awesome information, but can be too much information. So I like to keep it as simple as possible, especially in the introduction or the warm-up. Talk about what wattage is and help them understand that it has nothing to do with what their neighbor's getting. Their wattage or their power is all relative to them because it's an equation that takes into account their age, their size, their height, their weight, their gender, some of the things that they can't control. So they need to focus on just what their wattage is. Also, as an instructor, you need to avoid giving wattage numbers if you have wattage or gears in your classes. Don't say, I'm at 300 watts, you need to be there right now to be working hard enough. A little tiny, like 115-pound woman is not going to be able to get there safely for the most part. I don't want to necessarily say that she can't, but that's going to be impossible for some people to reach. And so don't give those numbers, those specific numbers. Give ranges, and not even specific ranges like 300 to 400. Give a range of try to increase your power by just 1 right now, or increase your power by 5 during this hill. So giving them kind of increases and decreases. Don't go down lower than 100 or 100 watts after we come down after this hill. So they know that they need to keep some things. That's where gear can come in really well, is useful as well. RPMs, I always set a range in my introduction or my warm-up that they shouldn't ever go below 55 RPMs once we start to climb hills, because then they're just doing basically a leg press and they're not getting the cardiovascular results we want. And they don't want to be above 115 because after that point you have like literally no resistance on the bike and you're just letting the legs go crazy and you're setting yourself up for potential injury. So saying those ranges is very important in your intro. And then as your class starts and as you start cueing them through the drills, don't forget to give them an idea of what the drill is going to be before it starts, how long each interval is going to be, and how much rest they're going to get in between, and then the effort level and the terrain. And never lie to your participants. Make sure you're telling them exactly what to expect during that interval or that training thing that you're going through, whatever kind of drill you're taking them through. And then make sure it matches your music speed too, so that everything is moving along. When they're going really fast, the music matches that. When they're going really slow, the music matches that hill or that tempo that you're trying to follow. And again, that music in your introduction should have as little vocals as possible, more you talking and them listening, and get their attention right away. Make sure they know that you're gonna have an awesome ride, you're a great coach, and if they need anything or if they have any questions throughout the class, that you're there for them. Hope you guys enjoy this warm-up Wednesday for cycling, and I hope to see you guys again.